Welcome to the Agile Basics series. Today we like to focus on continuing Agile, learn Scrum, and make money. Scrum Basics. So topics for this video include the following. What is Scrum? Let's talk about the basics. Roles in Scrum. We're going to focus on the Scrum Master and the Product Owner. The Scrum ceremonies. There are 4 within each sprint. And then what we'd really like to focus on, the most appropriate projects for Scrum. You can hear us preach about this. We want to caution teams that don't just go into Agile thinking every project has to be Scrum. That's not at all the case. That's why we really want to talk about the complexities of Scrum and then kind of align that with what projects might not be appropriate for Scrum. So we're going to talk in detail about that as our final topic. Topic 1. What is Scrum? Scrum is a term borrowed from the sport of rugby, which is similar to a kickoff in football. But from an Agile perspective, it's the type of Agile project, the Agile framework, that features the 2 to 3 week sprint cycle. During this 2 to 3 week sprint, Scrum teams of generally 5 to 7 people work to complete as many tasks that were committed for the sprint. The number of tasks completed will vary as the project moves forward and the team develops a pattern and a frequency to its completion. We call this velocity. We'll introduce that term later. Now let's take a look at the basic Agile and Scrum project flow, the way things work in a Scrum environment. We're going to start off by building up the project or the product backlog. That's the full list of requirements that we need for the overall project. Secondarily, we'll split it out to a sprint backlog, what we work on for the sprint. We're going to plan, develop, and ideally within the 2 to 3 week sprint, we have new functionality to demo for the business. Now let us get into some more specifics about Scrum. We'll talk about roles, ceremonies, etc. in the next couple of lessons, and we'll focus first on the specific roles of Scrum that differ from Kanban or many other Agile frameworks. The Scrum Master is a very important role in the Scrum framework, and what the Scrum Master does is they lead all of the Scrum ceremonies, including the daily Scrum, and they coordinate the Scrum team as opposed to managing them. They work with them as a technical lead. We view the product owner as the most important role in Scrum, and the product owner represents the business's requirements and needs for the project. They guide the direction and the prioritization for each of the sprints. So in addition to the Scrum Master and the product owner, you have the remainder of the Scrum team. And this is going to be a combination of your developers, your DBA, change, whatever your project needs from an IT or other perspective. And ideally, this is going to be a 5 to 7 member team. You're going to be a cross-functional team that work well together. In an ideal world, they're going to be in the same physical location or at least the same time zone if working in a remote environment. An additional team role that we recommend for our projects, even though it's not an official Scrum role, is that of the Agile Project Manager. And this is someone who will manage communications, will budgets, things of that nature, and overall schedule, and let the Scrum team focus on the sprints. The product owner and the Scrum Master work together, and while the product owner generally comes from the business side or as someone that has a tight relationship with the business, the Scrum Master is typically taken from the team. It could be from a different role or someone who's a technical lead. So let's look at what makes a good Scrum Master. Some are skills, some are soft skills. Great communicator. Need someone who can lead the Scrum ceremonies and work with them a team, daily stand-up. A servant leader, and this comes down to soft skills, someone who can be lead without being bossy, without being controlling like stereotypical project managers can be. Technical skills. We want someone who can actually work on tasks. If we have user stories to complete and we need help, they should be able to chip in, as opposed to a project manager who oftentimes does not have the technical skills to work on IT projects. So when moving from a traditional waterfall project management environment to a Scrum environment, the question comes up, should project managers be converted to Scrum Masters? And not to be non-committal, but it really does depend on the individual. I, for example, came from a technical background, starting out as a developer, so the transition from being a project manager to Scrum Master was natural. I always kind of managed projects more like a buddy or a coach than I did project manager being strict, following the Gantt chart. So really look at the individual and see if the skill sets align before making the straight-up conversion. Now that you've identified the Scrum Master and the product owner roles, it's time to focus on fleshing out the team. And for a successful team, I stated before, you want them to be co-located or in the same time zone and to be across various disciplines. They should be individuals that work well together and complement the efforts of the product owner, the scrum master, and the overall project goals. Part 2, the scrum process. The scrum process itself involves 4 different ceremonies, the first of which is sprint planning. Sprint planning is essential, and we recommend before you go into the first sprint planning session, you have 2 sprints worth of work defined, and then start to plan it out as far as what gets done on each individual sprint. So the sprint planning meeting should be led by the Scrum Master, with the product owner prioritizing the tasks. And goals of each meeting should be identifying the tasks for the sprint, and then planning an end of sprint demo where you show off what's been done to the business. So the specifics of the sprint planning meeting itself could take up to 8 hours. We don't think it should take that long. But what you want to do is take what's in the product backlog, prioritize it, and determine what should be done during the sprint. Again, with the goal of having a demo at the end if appropriate. So the second of the key Scrum ceremonies would be the daily stand-up. We love the daily stand-up, which should be a 15-minute meeting ideally. Should be led by the Scrum Master. And for this meeting, each team member should speak. And you're looking to answer 3 specific questions. Fairly simple. What did you do yesterday? Or the last workday, if this is a Monday. Don't get smart. And then what are your plans to do today? Your key objectives. And then finally, we like this one. Do you have any blockers or impediments? Basically, these are problems that you need help with. This could be help from another team member, or maybe this is where the Scrum Master or product owner could step in and add assistance. Maybe you need to talk to another team member that reports to a different Scrum Master, and that conversation should be brokered by the Scrum Master. One of the goals of Agile and Scrum projects in particular is the concept of continuous improvement. And that's where the next 2 Scrum ceremonies come into play. You have 2. You've got the sprint review and demo, when appropriate, and the sprint retrospective. And think of it very simplistically. The sprint review and demo is an opportunity to celebrate wins, what the team's accomplished, review what's been completed, and then also show the business a demo when it's appropriate, because you have to keep business buy-in and keep them engaged and feeling confident about the project, or else there could be some doubts and some resistance along the way. So we find this is a very effective tool, and you do that each sprint. And the sprint retrospective is the flip side of that. The idea of the retrospective, as this graphic implies, to get better each sprint as you move along the overall project, and use the sprint retrospective as a lessons learned opportunity, answering 3 very simple questions. What went well? What did not go so well? And then identify any action items that might be appropriate to correct and then move forward. Again, circling back to that earlier graphic with the idea of continuous improvement in mind, so that each sprint you're a little bit better, maybe you backtrack a little bit, then continue to get better as you go. Next, let's talk about when Scrum is most appropriate, when to use Scrum. So if you have a cloud architecture project, servers, storage, big data, analytics, should this be a Scrum project? Nope. This would line up best with Kanban or even traditional waterfall project management, because it's not necessarily going to be grouped into sprints. You got to think in terms of sprints. What about a data center move? Physically moving data centers from across states or various cities with a lot of hardware to be implemented? That's a no. That's going to be too linear. It's not going to fall in line with sprints. It should be managed probably Kanban or waterfall. So when to use Scrum? When is it most appropriate? Let's take it from the Agile Manifesto. Working software over comprehensive documentation. So we stress that software projects are ideal for Scrum. That's what, in my mind, that's what Scrum was defined for or invented for. And you're going to want especially software projects that have frequent priority changes, because we know one of the big benefits of Agile and Scrum is to be able to change priorities each sprint. And then thirdly, you want to have a team that's high performing and well established. You don't want to have to assign roles to a team that really hasn't worked well together or much in the past. In conclusion, we recommend Agile for most teams as we feel it's significantly superior to Waterfall. We just recommend that you try to use the best flavor of Agile for your project. I've had people say, well, I could run Scrum for hardware. You could, absolutely, especially if enterprise mandates it. But if you have the option, look at the best flavor of Agile, the best type of Agile between Scrumban, Kanban, or Scrum that fits your enterprise, and go that direction. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our video. Please subscribe to our channel and join us next time.